Auckland Energy Consumer Trust owns 75% of Vector, the electricity lines company, and its 5 trustees receive dividends on that 75% shareholding, which they turn around and distribute to the trust beneficiaries.
Who's that?
The trust beneficiaries are all the electricity account holders within what is known as the district, and the district is Old Auckland, Old Manukau, and Northern Papakura. Right. Their old boundaries. It's essentially the boundaries of the old Auckland Electricity Power Board.
So how come we have a vote for this?
Well, because we own it. All of Auckland owns that asset, or not all, but that particular district owns it, and the 75%. We used to own 100%, but the Citizen Ratepayers Controlled Board, about 10 years ago, sold off 25%, but we still own 75%. Right. And so part of the reason to vote is to make sure that we keep that 75%. This is, in a lot of ways, this election is a mini referendum on state asset sales. The ballots will be appearing in your mailbox or account holder's mailboxes about the 11th or 12th of October. They get mailed out the 10th. And we're really just encouraging people to recycle that ballot by ticking our brand, which is Your Power, and posting it back in the mail. Up to now, only about 20% of people vote. If we can increase that voter turnout, we have a real shot at unseating the current CNR trustee board. 1 vote per account.
Right. Okay.
So essentially, it's probably whoever pays the electric bill, whoever it comes into, has that. There's a little booklet of all the different candidates with a short little description, and you get 5 votes for 5 trustees. Their job is not actually a huge job in and of itself, in that they have 12 meetings a year and some subcommittee meetings. They receive the dividends from Vector and then distribute it to the beneficiaries, so they need to look over that process. And then they elect the 7 directors of Vector itself. So they're not in charge of the commercial operations of Vector. They appoint the directors. We're called Your Power Team.
Your Power Team.
And the 5 candidates are Glenda Fryer,
right.
David Shand, Chris Olson, Rick Leckinger, and myself. And so it's a combination of Greens, Labor, and Independent.
Great. So Glenda Fryer has a background as a Auckland City Councillor in the previous council. David Shand, he's very well known for the work that he's done on rates, and he's he's very well respected. He was a commissioner in the Royal Commission on Auckland Governance.
I think that's right. He has Ngāi Tahu background.
Yeah.
And was a director of Meridian at one time.
Right, that's quite useful. And Chris Olson.
Chris is just back in New Zealand, is working on some really interesting community power projects, is an energy analyst. Wow. And then Rick, Green Party member, who was the policy advisor for Jeanette Fitzsimons for a number of years.
Right, okay, so he's got quite a good background in climate change and
sustainability.
And efficient energy.
I took an MBA back in the 80s and have had a career sort of in business and in community issues. Currently, I manage a portfolio of stocks and bonds and real estate, but my community side has been, we're sitting near the campus of Unitech. I was the co-founder of the Unitech not-for-profit management program, and then later ran the Tyndall Foundation, and was also involved in a community fundraising organization called United Way here in Auckland. And so I've been very interested in community development for years. I'm very interested in having an opportunity to take something that combines my commercial experience with a public purpose. The Tyndall Foundation was 2 years managing it. I've been very fortunate to stay close to them subsequent to that. In fact, one of the people that was one of our first graduates from the Unitech not-for-profit management program, Trevor Gray, succeeded me at the Tyndall Foundation.
And what was that money, what were you distributing it to?
Tyndall Foundation was all over New Zealand, so not just in an Auckland area, and went for a number of different social service areas, social innovation. We were a big funder of the Zero Waste project early on, and the Jobs Research Trust, or the Mayor's Task Force on Jobs. So it was a very wide-ranging funding. It's important to state kind of our core issues of why we're standing against the current CNR trust.
That's a great way to start.
It's our point of view that they are really not acting in the best interests of the trust beneficiaries. And they're
the existing ones.
They're paying themselves excessive trustee fees and they're paying consultants to essentially argue against decreases in electricity prices. Wow. So we don't feel like that's really what they're elected to do, and that's why we think there needs to be a change. I'll bring up that trustee fee issue for a moment. They have basically 12 monthly meetings and some subcommittee meetings. For that, the chair is paid $90,000 a year. Wow. The other trustees somewhere around $63,000. That's twice as much as local board members are paid. I cannot believe that they work twice as hard. At the trust annual meeting in 2010, the current CNR trustees justified the fees by comparing themselves to the trustees of ASB Trust and Auckland Regional Holdings, which is now the Auckland Council Investments Limited. I checked this week. The payment for the ASB trustees is $18,000 a year. That for the Auckland Council Investments Limited, $36,000. Wow. So to me, that doesn't add up. They're paying themselves excessive fees, and we'd cut those fees by up to 40%. Right. The reason I bring that up is because that then frees up some money to do some other interesting things. Right. That would, in the first year, would raise $140,000. And so we're looking at projects and we're open to people suggesting ideas. I think with that sort of money, it's not huge money, but it's the sort of thing where we might be able to start to do some pilot projects. The kinds of ideas we're kicking around is perhaps some sort of pilot project aimed at smart meters. As you may know, smart meters actually aren't very smart. No, they're totally unsmart. And they're good for the utility company, but they typically lack a chip in them that allows the homeowner to monitor their own energy use. And so we'd like to look at something that help people do that. Another idea is something akin to the Greens insulation scheme. We're wondering if we might be able to set something up where folks elect that their dividend go into a fund that gets matched by other funders, say 2-to-1, that then gives them a bit of capital to be able to insulate their own home. Wow. That would be, so in both of those cases, they're self-funding. Yeah. One through the trustee fee savings, and this through the dividend themselves, but trying to multiply that dividend and make it more useful. Right. Actually, those are, that would go a long way towards reducing electricity use, wouldn't it? Well, that's the idea. Now, of course, that's interesting in that probably can have an impact on Vector's bottom line. Yeah, I wondered about that. And how does that play out for the account holders? Yeah, I think the general feeling is that most people I speak to would rather have their prices come down than worry about the dividend. They'd like both, and we want to protect the dividend. But if we can create something where people get the money up front rather than waiting for the back end to come out the back end as a dividend, it's much more efficient and people have it in hand. Just the distribution of the dividend is actually costly to the trust. It costs $1 million a year to get it out to everyone, to send that check out. Again, if the price was cheaper, it's better for people. And you have your own DIY dividend. Yeah. You can save that money yourself and put it in your pocket. But in each case, though, we want that to be a choice that the consumer makes or the account holder makes. And so it wouldn't be mandatory that you do that, but it would be something that would be able to multiply what your dividend gives. Another savings that we could do is on consultants' fees. The trust is spending a fair amount on consultants every year. To do what? They've been making submissions to the Commerce Commission alongside Vector, arguing, and this is essentially where it's early days. I'm just starting to read through the submissions, but in a lot of ways they're talking about a nebulous concept called workable competition and asking the Commerce Commission to not spend as much time looking at things like avoiding excess profits or one of the things Commerce Commission has looked at in the past is incentives for innovation, incentives for efficiency, and sharing that efficiency with consumers. The submissions that I've read so far push toward this other idea of, no, let's just workable competition will somehow deliver all of that for us. I think it's nebulous. I can understand Vector on its own bat making those sorts of submissions as a private company, weighing up the different issues, and it's got we're not the only shareholders, or AECT is not the only shareholders, they're also private shareholders. But I don't understand why the Auckland Energy Consumer Trust has to do those as well. It seems to me Vector's a big boy, and they can do it all on their own.
Yeah.
But that frees up, there's maybe another $1 million in consulting fees. It's a little hard to get the numbers, and the transparency in the trust has not been that great up till now. The annual report has some very broad categories, but it's hard to kind of get into the specifics of what's there, and that's another thing we'd like to do is be much more transparent about how the money is spent every year. A lot of time reading Commerce Commission reports. It's my go-to-sleep recipe, but I've learned a lot. We're spend a lot of time, too, just trying to talk to people and confirming that we've got the set of issues that people seem to be most concerned with. And, I mean, in short, our issues are keep the assets, protect the dividend, cut the excessive fees, and push for lower power prices. Do what we can. Now, Vector, I mean, and most people probably know that, but it's just for those who don't, to reiterate, the electric lines cost is only really a small portion of what your total power cost is. Because the retailer that you don't get a bill from Vector. You get a bill from Genesis or Meridian or Mercury. But the cost of the lines are actually on that bill as well if you kind of look at the small print. Nothing we can really do about the retail price at this stage. But we do want to examine if are the prices fair that Vector is charging. And fair is important because it's also really vital that Vector have enough funds to reinvest in the network so it's safe and secure. Vector's had a great program over the years of undergrounding, which makes things much more safer in a disaster. I was a whole other lifetime ago. I spent some time doing relief work after Hurricane Katrina in Louisiana, and part of the trouble was down power lines and how dangerous they were. So undergrounding the lines, which Vector has paid for over the years, is an excellent thing. Plus, it just makes things look nicer. And I have to say, Vector has done a great job. And returning to that point, though, it's important that they have the funds to innovate and keep supply secure. But we just want to make sure that that's not excessive either. And so it's finding that balance. And my sense of the Commerce Commission is that they're an independent agency trying to find that balance. I've had a 25-year connection with New Zealand. I got married here in 1987 and became a resident in 1993. And lived in St. Heliers for a couple of years before I found the beautiful sunny Waiheke in 1995. Became a citizen in 2001. And I'm very proud of my home now. It's a sustainable barn. It's a barn with a play space inside, but 3.6 kilowatt solar array on the top, and I'm feeding energy back into the grid, and I waste way too much time looking at my little meter, saying, oh, my God, I just sold a kilowatt back. I made 23 cents.
What spurred your interest? I mean, obviously, if you're sitting there watching your smart meter or your meter sending things back, and you're now standing for the Auckland Electricity Consumer Trust, was there something that kind of spurred you into this?
Well, I was fortunate to get the Green Party nomination from Waiheke to do this. But it's something I had thought about for some years. It appeals to me again because of the link of public interest and commercial. Right. And I think a lot of positive social change can happen at that intersection. I mean, I think it's really, we're so dependent in a good way on business success, and I really applaud smart businessmen who are making good, hard decisions and taking risk and moving things forward. But they exist within a public framework, and I'm interested in that work and trying to make positive social change there. Please take all five seats. I mean, the board, the trust board, has had issues in the past of dysfunctional, and it's been divisive. I mean, there've been lawsuits and difficult. There were suits around the sale of the 25%, and the progressive some brave folks at the time who stood up and tried to keep that from happening, but didn't. Weren't successful. First and foremost, tell people about it, because really people don't understand that it's out there. So if you're with family or friends, Ask them if they're the account holder, and ask them if they vote, and if they do, please think about voting for your power team.